All right, good morning, everyone. This is, you don't need to know who this is. This morning I'll talk about the foundational 15 of chapter 4. As I said, we're going to make it a series of foundational 15 so that you have a chance to practice at least one typical problem from each of the chapters from the Garrison textbook. So this is a process costing example. It has, as usual, 15 requirements. It's a fairly simple problem, fairly easy one. After finishing this one, I'll try to talk about a more complex problem either in this video or on a separate video. So that's the promise. All right, so in this foundational 15, we have a company who has just one manufacturing department, one processing department. And being one, it's of course going to be, as I said, simple. The company name is Clopec Company. So let me go over the story. Clopec Company, they have just one department called the mixing department. In June, they had a lot of activities. They started the month with 5,000 units with a total cost of $28,000 in beginning work in process. So that's beginning WIPI, beginning work in process inventory on June the 1st, $28,000, and that consists of $16,000 in materials cost and $12,000 in conversion. Conversion meaning, you know what? Conversion means labor and overhead together. So in all these process costing examples, we do not distinguish between labor and overhead in terms of percentage completion, percentage of completion, or in terms of costs added. Sometimes in terms of costs added, we distinguish. We say, okay, we added X dollars of labor and Y dollars of overhead. But in terms of completion, degree of completion, it is kept at the same. All right, so we started the month with 5,000 units and 5,000 partially completed units, of course. The units are 100% complete in terms of wire, 100% complete in terms of materials. And we're going to find out how much it was in terms of conversion. It was 50%. So 5,000 units were 100% complete in terms of materials and only half as complete in terms of labor and overhead. But the total cost injected was $28,000. So that's what it came to this department. We began, sorry, there's just one department, as I told you. So that's how we began the month. And then during the month, we added $120,000 worth of material and $79,500 worth of labor and $97,000 worth of overhead. So you can see I'm already, to an extent, contradicting myself that although in terms of the degree of completion is kept at the same, but the amount of cost injected or the cost added is sometimes distinguished. Labor and overhead is separately mentioned. Also, in this question, we have added $120,000 of material, $79,500 of labor, and $97,000 worth of overhead. And then we, of course, we did work on those units, and we added the extra cost that we added. That involved 37,500 additional units. So total number of units that we need to account for is 5,000, the initial 5,000 plus the 37,500. So that would make it up to 42,500 units. And by the time we ended the month, we transferred all the units except 8,000 units. So 8,000 units was still in work in process inventory on June 30th, at the end of June. So we'll have to find out their degrees of completion. And in terms of the degrees of completion, these were also 100% complete in terms of material and only 40%. 40% is good in terms of conversion. So we'll have to find out the equivalent units. Now the questions, of course, simple ones, starting with the preparation of journal entries to record the raw materials used in production and direct labor cost incurred. Materials used, labor used. And the journal entry number 2, requirement number 2, journal entry to record the overhead cost applied. and we'll go as we go. So let's see how we can proceed. So this is the solution. This is how I solved it. So first of all, let's wrap up the story. The story is that we have one processing department that started with 5,000 units, costing $28,000, split between materials and overhead, $16,000 for materials, $12,000 for overhead. And then during the month, we added material, labor, and overhead of different amounts. And we ended the month with 8,000 units, partially complete, and the remaining units were transferred to finished goods inventory. All right, so the requirement number one is, what is the journal entry to record the use of materials used? So what happens when materials are used? We debit work in process. Debit work in process, because all the resources absorbed in the process are saved, are accumulated in work in process. So your first entry is debit work in process. You can add WIPI, work in process inventory, $120,000, and credit raw materials inventory, so because they come from raw materials. Then number two, requirement number two was the entry for additional, the addition of labor. So the addition of labor was, again, debit work in process and credit wages payable. All right, debit work in process, wages payable. And third was the entry for overhead application. Overhead application is, again, debit work in process, credit manufacturing overhead. So overhead applied was $97,000. Let's see if any application rate was given. Application rate wasn't given. It just mentioned at the beginning that the company uses weighted average method. The work in process department, their T account shows the following. And if in the work in process department, if it goes to the work in process department, that means that's what was applied. Because manufacturing overhead has, as I said before, two entries. One is when you accumulate, then you debit manufacturing overhead and credit utilities payable and wages payable and salaries payable, all those, or even depreciation, accumulated depreciation, that is. But when overhead is applied, we bring it to work in process. So debit work in process, credit manufacturing overhead. All right, so those are the first three. One for, in a sense, material application, labor application, and overhead application. All right. Requirement number four is compute the equivalent units of production for materials, and then number five would be for conversion. All right, so how do you compute the equivalent units? So in other words, how many units have been produced during the month? You tell me how many units were produced. They started with $5,000. They're already all complete as far as material goes. So we didn't make any contribution to those 5,000. Then the new 37,500 units that have been injected into the process, they've all been worked on, because even though they have not all been transferred to finished goods, 8,000 units were still there, but 8,000 units are all complete as far as material goes. So in terms of materials, our total work during the period would be the original 5,000 plus the 37,500. So that's what we calculate here. You can see 5,000 units, the beginning inventory, plus 37,500 minus 8,000 that we kept with us. So 34,500 is what's been produced and transferred to the next department. 34,500 have been worked on and transferred to the next department. The question was completely equivalent units of production for materials. All right. Next is do the same for overhead or conversion. You can see unit transferred out. 34,500, we just calculated here. Unit transferred out plus equivalent units in ending inventory, 8,000. So equivalent units of production, 42,500. I think we missed a requirement here. Requirement 3 was how many units are completed and transferred to finished goods during the period. Yes, I think I may have confused you. We missed this third requirement. How many units were completed and transferred? So do your arithmetic. How many units we started with? We started with 5,000. we added 37,500. So 5,000 plus 37,500 is 42,500. From 42,500, keep 8,000 in your finished goods. So take away 8,000 from 42,500, you're left with 34,500. So there's the answer to requirement number 3. That is not what was produced during the period. What was produced is So produced would be under weighted average. Under weighted average, we would include all the costs. When we do the unit costs, would include the beginning ones, the beginning 5,000 plus what we have worked on, was started and finished. So here you can see units transferred out is 34,500 plus units in closing inventory 8. So the total equivalent units of production is 42,500 units. And this is 40,005. If you calculate the other way around, if you calculate 5, the beginning 5 plus the newly injected 34,500, the newly injected 37,500. So that also add up to 42,500. Now this is an important detour, I would say, or an important twist, an important point to remember. And the textbook actually goes on, to delve in this for a bit of space. What happens under the other method, the first in, first out method, we make a distinction between what is started and ended and transferred to the next department during this period. Because that's what we have actually worked. Truly, we have worked on those units, the ones that we received or inherited from either previous period or previous, from a separate department. That's not what we worked on. But under weighted average method, because we import all the costs from the previous department or previous period, we also import all the units. So in real sense, the equivalent units during this period would be, you tell me how many? The original 5, the 5 that you had received, you have not made any contribution to those 5,000 units. Your contribution was on the remaining 37,500. And that 37,500 is what you started and finished. You haven't transferred all of it. Obviously, you transferred some of it. But in weighted average method, we mix it all up. We bring in the original 5, we add the 37,500, so that makes it 42,500. And all 42,500 is considered to have been completed. If it is completed in terms of material, well, in this case, it looks like that is the case. So in terms of production, we'd have to either do beginning 5 plus what you have worked on, if, provided all the units that we have worked on are 100% complete in terms of materials, and it looks like they all are. So better way is to look at the exit route. So how many units have gone out of the department? Looks like, from 5,000, original 5,000 plus 37,500, 42,500. So for 42,500, if you take away 8,000, then 34,500 is what gone to the next department. So use the answer to requirement 3, use that plus the 8,000 that you have retained. Now that 8,000 is a key element, because that 8,000 might not have been complete 100%. In this case, they are. So 8,000 is 8,000 plus 34,000 is 34,000. So 34,500 plus 8,000 is 42,500. So that's what is the answer to requirement 4. The requirement 5 asks you complete the equivalent units of production for conversion. I think this is where we are going to learn something better. So in terms of conversion, the ones we received were 5,000, but they are not already. Were they? They are not already. So beginning work in process we received was 5,000 units, and let me find out how much they are complete. They are complete only 50%. So we have worked on those 5,000 for the remaining 50%, haven't we? So that's 5,000 times 0.5. That gives you 2,500 units. And then we started 37,500 and assume that these 37,500 are not all complete, because from 37,500 we have retained 8,000. So let's assume that similar to FIFO, that the ones that we have inherited are the ones that we also transferred. So that's 5,000. And how much was our contribution? Our contribution was only 50%. But if we include if we bring in the costs from the previous period or from the previous department, then we have to bring in the completed portion of the 2. So better is assume that they are all 5 plus you have injected 37,500, so 42,500. 42,500 minus 8,000 times the degree of completion. So 42.5 minus 8,000 times the degree of completion this time is 40%. These 8,000, the 8,000 that you retained are only 42% complete. So you have worked only 40, so not 42, only 40%. So how much that is? All 34.5 plus 40% of 8,000, which would be 3,200 units. So the total number of units completed in terms of work in terms of conversion is 37.7. 37.7. All right. So what is this? This is the 34.5. You can see 34.5 plus 8 makes it up to 42.5. The total units is 42.5. 5,000 plus 37.5. So from 5,000 plus 37.5, you just keep the retain. You retain your 8. You retain your 8,000. That means the other 34,500 have been transferred to the next department, even though you haven't worked on all of them, because 5,000 of those came as half complete. But that's FIFO. Here you assume all 5 as if you worked, because you are responsible. You're making yourself responsible for the costs of it. So everything that's transferred to the next department or to finished goods, plus the equivalent units of the ones that you have. So 30,000, 34,005 plus 80% of 8,000. Sorry, 40% of 8,000. So this is 3,200 plus this makes it 37.7. All right, 37.7. Then number 6, requirement number 6 is, what is the cost of beginning work in process plus the cost added during the period for materials? So that's what it is, the cost of beginning work in process. In terms of materials, that was, the question was specific about materials. So we know that the cost of beginning inventory was $28,000, of which 16 was material and 12, let's go over the conversion as well at the same time. So 16,000 was for material, 12,000 was for labor and overhead. Then how much was added? We've added $120,000 worth of material. So 16 plus 120, answer is 136. And how much is conversion? 12 plus the total conversion was 79.5 was labor and 97 was overhead applied. So also these two are added during the month. This is what we inherited. That's the total cost of conversion. So that answers requirement 7 as well. Then requirement 8 is, what is the cost of equivalent unit for material? And then we're going to be asked about the same for conversion. I repeat, what is the cost per equivalent unit for materials? Cost per equivalent unit for materials. So we have the total materials cost, don't we? So the total material cost, how much? 136. So divide 136 by their equivalent units. What's the equivalent units? You can see equivalent units would be 42.5. See, for material, all the units are all complete. So equivalent is the same, equivalent number of equivalent units is the same as the total number that we inherited plus we started. Because even though we retained 8,000 units, they're all complete, 100% complete in terms of materials. So this number, the materials cost $136,000 divided by 42,005 is going to be your unit cost of materials, unit cost as far as materials go. Then the same, what is the equivalent unit cost for overhead, for conversion? You can see what is the answer here. What is the total cost of conversion? That's $188,500. So remember that and divide the 188. You can see 188,500 divided by, this would be 37.7. 34.5 plus 3,200. It's not 42.5 because they're not all ready as far as conversion goes. So the answer there is $5 as far as conversion goes. Wonderful. So 34.5 plus the 32. So the denominator here is 37.7. And I've shown you how we calculated the 34.5. 34.5 is beginning plus the ones we added minus what we have retained. So that's 34.5. The ones that came and went as complete items. And this is 3,200 is the equivalent of 8,000. Number 8, ending work in process inventory for material. So ending work in process material, how many units are there in work in process? 8,000 and there. And what's the unit cost of materials? That was answer to requirement 8. Unit cost of material was 3.2. So let me hold it for a second. You can see. So $3.2 is the cost of a unit of materials. You multiply it by 8,000, you'd get your answer. Ending work in process inventory as far as materials go. So 8,000 times 3.2, you can see here. Requirement number 10. I'm holding. And what's the same for conversion? How many units are there? 3,200. Yes, it is 8,000, but 8,000 are not complete, only 40% complete. So 8,000 times 40%, we already know that's 3,200 times the $5. $5 is the unit cost. So 11 is 3,200 times 5. All right. Then requirement 12 was the cost of materials transferred to finished goods. It was the amount of conversion cost transferred to finished goods. What was the cost of materials transferred to finished goods? Is it going to be any harder? Cost of materials transferred to finished goods. How many units have we transferred to finished goods? 34,500, isn't it? Look at requirement number 12. 34,500 units have been transferred to finished goods, and the cost of each unit is $3.20. So multiply that by $3.20. And the same number of units have been transferred to finished goods as far as conversion is concerned, and the conversion cost per unit was $5. So 34.5 times 3.2 and $5 respectively. That's requirements 12 and 13. Requirement 14 is the journal entry for this. So that's the total cost. You can see the cost of materials transferred, the cost of conversion transferred, the total cost of all the units transferred to finished goods. And that was $282,900. So the journal entry there is debit finished goods inventory, credit work in process. The receiver is debit, the giver is credit. So debit FGI, credit WIPI. And finally, number 15 is how much, what's the total amount to be accounted for and how much have been accounted for. So the total amount that you need to account for is, remember, the cost of the beginning inventory plus all the costs that you've injected. So there will be $28,000 plus the cost of materials added, labor added, overhead applied. So that is a total of $324,500. You can see I have added just those numbers. $28,000 is the cost of beginning inventory. This is materials added, this is labor added, and this is overhead added, $97,000. 97 is the last number. And the one before that is 79.5. That's labor. Material was 120. We know, all these numbers. So that's the total amount that you need to account for. And have we accounted for those? Yes, we have. What did you do with the money? We have transferred something onto the finished goods and we have retained something. So the cost of what we have transferred is this, $22,900. So at this number, $22,900 is the total cost, total amount, or total value, cost of the items transferred to finished goods. So that's $22,900 plus what's retained ending work in process. So in ending work in process, there are two things. One is, they're all 8,000, but in terms of materials, there's 8,000 times 3.2, so there'll be 25.6. There'll be 25.6 plus the conversion of 16. So 25.6 plus 16 makes it 41.6. So 41,600 plus 282,900. I repeat, 41,600 plus 282,900. Most importantly, what you need to account for is what you have injected. And how you are accounting for it is by showing that, look, I have 8,000 units, and this is the cost of those 8,000 units. And all of them are ready as far as materials go. So 8,000 times 3.2, that's your original number here, 25,600. And 8,000 times 0.4, 3,200 times $5, that's my labor and overhead. So that's 16. So some things here and some things gone to the showrooms. So that's how we say we're accounting for it. That's how it's being accounted for, and there's the cost reconciliation report. So what I've just said is actually a reconciliation report, which has two parts. One is the total cost to account for, and then you show by accounting for it. What you need to show, what you need to account for is what you've injected plus what you've inherited, and what you are showing is what's in here, like an ending inventory, and what's been transferred. So these are the 15 requirements. Okay. So that's requirement number 1, 2, 4. If you need to see the solutions, 1 to 4. And there's the other few, 5 to 8. And then finally, 9 to 15. 15 is not complete though. 15 is only half as complete. This is the amount that you need to account for. And I just use these two. So the numbers are here, 25,6 plus 16. You can see 25,6. So there's 16,000 somewhere. I think here, 16,000, 25,6 plus 16. Those two plus this. So the 3 would be equal to this. This reconciliation. All right, so goodbye until I see you again with the next video. And the next video is going to be on a specific problem, or also on process costing. All right, I hope you are working, my Accounting 219 students at Alabama A&M. I hope you have started, or you are about to start, your process costing chapter 4 homework and problems and exercises. All right, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.